The meeting of the Monroe Township Board of Education will come to order. Please stand as our student board member leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Gorski, may we please have a roll call?
Certainly. Mrs. Arminio.
Here.
Mr. Chiarella.
Here.
Mrs. DeMayo.
Here.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Here.
Mrs. Lang.
Here.
Mr. Peluri.
Here.
Mr. Ryback.
Here.
Mrs. Siegel.
Here.
Mr. Tefano.
Here.
And Mr. Rutsky.
Here.
Madam Board President, you have a quorum present this evening.
Thank you.
In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Monroe Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted April 20th, 2019 at all schools, the Home News Tribune, Cranberry Press, and filed with the clerk of the municipality.
Thank you very much. At this time, we will go to the approval of the minutes for the Public Board of Education meeting of March 18, 2019. I need a
I make a motion to accept them.
Mr. Pelori,
Second.
second by Mr. Tefano. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? Okay, seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Ms. Arminio is opposing. Abstain? Recuse. Okay, the approval of the minutes for the closed session meeting of March 18, 2019.
So moved.
Mr. Ryback?
I'll second.
Mrs. Lang?
Fine, no, that's fine.
Additions or corrections to the closed session? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ms. Arminio opposes.
So moved.
Abstain or recuse? Okay, thank you. So we have a lot of presentations on our agenda this evening, and we're going to be honoring a lot of kids also. So at this time, we're going to start with our MTEA Pride presentation. Dr. Alvick, would you like to introduce us in Mill Lake?
Absolutely. Good evening. So this is continuing with our MTEA Pride presentations and acknowledging some of our schools. So this evening, we have Miss Christy DeLuca, who is one of our third grade teachers at Mill Lake School, who's here with some of her students to share about how they are using their MTEA FAST grant for flexible seating and to talk about their Super Bowl book chat.
Okay.
Hi, how are you? I'm a third grade teacher at Mill Lake School. I'd like to introduce some special guests who came to help me present tonight.
Hi, my name is Amira. Hi, my name is Juliana. Hi, my name is Dominique.
Hi, my name is Luca.
Hi, my name is Olivia.
We were very fortunate to be awarded an MTA FAST grant, which allowed us to purchase different types of seating to create a flexible seating environment in our classroom. The money also helped to fund a reading bowl book chat that the parents were able to come in. They were able to see their children present different types of books that they had read throughout the month. They also got a chance to actually sit in flexible seating, so they got to see what their children experience every day, so it was a kind of like a neat experience for them. So we have a video that the class created that explains what flexible seating is, why we like it, how it helps us, and then kind of explains the book chat.
Welcome to Mr. Lucas' third grade classroom.
Our classroom is a little different than other ones. These are some pictures of what our classroom looks like. Our classroom was awarded an MTEA FAST grant. This grant provided funding to create a flexible seating environment in our third grade classroom at Mill Lake School. Flexible seating allows different postures and positions that help us learn without sitting in our desks all day. In our classroom, we are able to choose different places to sit throughout the day that are comfortable and work for our learning.
Flexible seating lets us interact, collaborate, and work together.
Flexible seating also allows us to focus and concentrate fully. We love to read in the Literacy Center on the pillows and in the gaming chair. Our parents were invited to our Reading Super Bowl chat where we were able to share and discuss our favorite books that we read throughout our monthly long Reading Super Bowl. When parents arrive for the Reading Super Bowl book chat, their child has them sit in the flexible seating option that they use to learn effectively during the school day. Book chats are fun, exciting, and motivating. Our Reading Super Bowl talks about fostered a love of lifelong reading and taught us titles of many new books. Here's a friend presenting his most valuable book at the character at the book chat. Students who scored the most points for their Super Bowl reading team received the Most Valuable Player Award at the Reading Super Bowl book chat. At the end of the Super Bowl book chat, each student was able to choose a book to bring home and keep. Here are some videos of friends in our classroom who shared their thoughts about flexible seating. Hello, my name is Juliana, and I like flexible seating because it helps me focus and helps me move around. Flexible seating helps me because we get to move our feet a little bit better than in chairs. One place I like to sit is the exercise wall. I really recommend it. And then when I am doing math, I really like going on the exercise ball. Bye. Hi, my name is Jure, and I like flexible seating because it is flexible and I can move around. Flexible seating helps me because it helps me to relax. One place I like to sit is exercise balls when I am doing math. Hi, my name is Naomi, and I like flexible seating because it helps me move around instead of just sitting in a regular chair. And flexible seating helps me because I feel loose and I can wiggle around, and it helps me concentrate. One place I like to sit in is on a rocker when I'm reading.
Hi, my name is Ryan, and I like flexible seating because it helps you get comfortable when you're doing your work instead of doing it in your desk. Flexible seating helps me because I have a hard time doing work at my table, so I go to flexible seating. One place I like to sit is the gaming chair when I'm reading. Bye.
Hi, I'm Valentina. I like flexible seating because it's fun. Flexible seating helps me because it helps me concentrate. One place I like to sit is the bouncy balls when I'm reading. Hello, my name is Olivia. I like flexible seating because it's comfortable. Flexible seating helps me because it makes me more focused. One place I like to sit is on the scoop rocker when I am in math.
Are you ready to try flexible seating?
Thank you for that awesome presentation. And if anybody's had the opportunity to sit in one of these chairs around here for 3 or 4 or 5 hours, we could probably use some comfortable, flexible seating. Thank you. Okay, our next presentation is Athletic Co-Curricular Student Recognition. Mr. Goodall?
Good evening, everyone. During the course of the year, we know that we have awesome students who do awesome things here in our school district. Tonight, we'd like to recognize our students who succeeded and did well in the classroom, in academic programs and competitions, on playing fields, on stages, and music halls. So at this time, I'd like to call up Dr. Alvik, Mrs. Kolopanowicz, Mr. Ryback to assist me in recognizing the students, and I would ask that Mr. Colella, as well as Mr. Byer, come up and present the students to the Board of Ed and the administration for recognition. And Mr. Madriperla, if you don't mind taking some photos.
We've had unbelievable winter this year as far as championships are concerned here at Monroe Township High School. School's been in existence for 44 years. This year was the first year that the state actually had a girls wrestling state tournament. We've never in our 44 years had a state championship wrestler, and then this year Gabby Miller, who I don't think is here tonight. Is Gabby here? I kept looking for her. But Gabby Miller won the state championship in the girls division at 147 pounds. So let's hear it for Gabby. At this time, I'd like to call up Coach Dillon from our Unified Basketball program. Now, you can clap for her because Coach Dillon has done a phenomenal job with our Unified program. If she looks a little bleary-eyed, she took the Unified soccer team to Kansas City to play against, with the Red Bulls, to play against the Kansas City, I forget the Sporting. She just got back from practice with the Red Bulls, but this is our basketball team. They won the state championship this year in basketball. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Ms. Dillon. She's going to introduce her players.
Okay, I just want to start off by thanking everyone for their support. You know, our unified programs here have exploded. We have several unified teams in our school, and we have in our basketball program alone 40 players. Kind of tough to run practices, but we enjoy what we do. We have a lot of fun. We learn. Unfortunately, we couldn't bring the entire 40 player squad to the state championship, so we had to hold it down to a 17-man or men-woman roster. Okay, so these are the people that competed and won the first ever unified state championship. Okay, so that was a big accomplishment for us. Caitlin Belko. Sarah Butler. Alex Daly. Brendan Deal. Some of our players are also lacrosse players, and they're at somewhere else right now. RJ Edwards. Megan Fannin. John Herring. Wesley Kika. Justin Marcello. Joseph McAvoy. Matt McHale. Catherine Orifice. Matt Pascal. Tara Petrulowicz. Jamie Santiago. Otherwise known as Jaime. That's right. They call him, everybody calls him Jaime because of the way his name's spelled. Sam Vasecco. Dallas Wilhelm. And we couldn't do anything without all the coaching. Sandy Muscali. Adam Goldberg. Sorry. Why is that wrong? Sorry, Adam. Sorry, Adam. You should be. And we couldn't do it without our coaching staff, Sandy Muscali and Valerie Gazda.
That was cute. I saw you mouth the word champs. That was cute.
It's automatic.
Our next championship team was state championship in competition cheer. You know anything about our competition cheer program? We've won quite a bit the last few years. We've won national championships, we've won state championships. At this time, I'd like to call up Coach Erica Brown to introduce her team.
All right. I'm Rebecca Antonacci. Amanda Antonacci. Gianna Arcaro. Alex Terlencione. Holly Durso. Natalie DePalma. Ashley DeVito. Gracie Sandrio. Kara Fazback. Daniela France. Danny Goldstein. Jonathan Paradiso. Lexi Holland. Ashley Kozar. Alexis Lear. Mercedes Machinsky. Ava Maddox. Diana Maresca. Morgan McDermott. Sarah Menninger. Emmy Oji. Juliana Primavera. Sophia Ramirez, Nicole Ryan, Taylor Spalding, and Maddie Thacker.
Next group that I'm going to introduce is our bowling team. We've had quite the success in bowling, and it kind of goes from year to year. 3 years ago, the boys won the state championship. Last year, the girls won the state championship. This year, the boys again won the Group 4 Central Jersey State Championship. At this time, I'd like to introduce Coach Marissa Gura, and she's going to introduce the young men, along with their assistant coach.
Just wanted to say Coach Cass and I are pretty proud of all of their accomplishments all season. There are 4 of them here out of the large team of 6. So we're going to start with our one and wonderful senior over here, Riley McKiernan. Joe Holler. Jacob Chin. CJ Folgori. And as always, right on time, senior Louis Folgori.
There you go.
That's not me, no. We're short, that's fine.
Ready, turkey.
Sometimes you just wait, guessing.
Perfect game.
Ken, you got that?
Got it.
Perfect game?
Mr. Colella, it's all yours.
And then I get frustrated. I'm like, oh my God. Can you, I'm going to cheat. First one use 20 minutes. It could have been 4 minutes. We were done. Yeah, it's torture. But it pays the bills.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to present a few of the, I guess, can you hear me? Sorry about that. We're going to recognize some of the students at MTHS for their state-level accomplishments in the extracurricular activities department. We have over 60 offerings here at the school, and we pretty much meet the needs of all of our learners, and I think we do a pretty good job of it. A number of those offerings involve academic competitions, and that's why we're here tonight. These academic competitions are run at a state level, so the kids that we're going to be recognizing tonight did a great thing and accomplished something at the state level, which is pretty outstanding. There are a number of clubs we're going to recognize. I'm going to do one at a time. The first one is the Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America, aka FCCLA. That's advised by Ms. Pam Valvano. That club focuses on the personal growth and development through family consumer science education. So tonight, I'm going to acknowledge the following students and their respective awards in their statewide competition. First one being Ria Honda. Is she here tonight? There she is. First place and a gold medal for fashion and design in sportswear. Next on the list, Amanda Leibowitz. The next three won first place and a gold medal for early childhood education and storybook ethics. Those three are Julia Gurin, Kristen Schreiber, and Taylor Vigario. The next two students won first place and a gold medal for early education for Toys That Teach. Those two students are Amy Barsuk and Lauren Roble. I'd like to thank Club Advisor Ms. Falvano and all the other family consumer science teachers at MTHS for helping our students make these great achievements. The next extracurricular activity is the Model United Nations, aka MUN. That's advised by Mr. Joe Romano. Club members in that organization learn all about the United Nations, world cultures, as well as politics while debating issues of international importance. I'd like to acknowledge the following two students for their respective awards on a statewide level. Rajat Hegde, is he here today? And Mega Jan. All right, moving on to the next club, Art Club, which is advised by Miss Maria Nomick. Club members in that club continue their art education and collaborate on techniques and concepts as they create works for both their portfolios as well as the overall school community. We have one student we'd like to honor tonight. Jessica Skuriton, is she here tonight? Please keep in mind that many of these students are either working on the play, because it is Hell Week, or they're at sporting events, or they're on a DECA trip. So we're going to do our best tonight. Our next extracurricular activity is DECA, which is advised by Ms. Deb Stupinski. Club members in DECA participate in activities and academic competitions which help them become future leaders in marketing, finance, hospitality, and management. Our first student we'd like to recognize tonight is Shivam Patel. These three students were awarded the top role play for entrepreneurship team decision making. They are Sukrut Oat, Yuraj Delayed, and Ria Mahagakar. Is Varun Bharti here? Nope. Next student, Manan Shah. I know he's here. I know Manan's here. Manan did something pretty cool. He was awarded the top test, top role play 1, and the top role play 2, all for retail merchandising event. Excellent job. He's also the student representative to the Board of Education. Our next student was awarded top test for business servicing marketing. Sena Lagalin, she here tonight. This student was awarded the NJ DECA State Scholarship, Kimvi Tran. And the last student to be honored for DECA is Layla Fahazi Azad, who was elected to 2019-2020 New Jersey DECA State Vice President of Media, which I'm being told is a very big deal. Is she here tonight? All right. Mr. Goodall, do you want to do FBLA as well? Because it's another business organization. You want to, just so we get possibly some more people up there before we take the picture? Okay. Everyone likes Manan. All right, as I alluded to, the second organization, business organization that I'm going to introduce tonight is the FBLA. They're advised by Ms. Deanna Dale. Future Business Leaders of America members participate in academic competitions as well as a host of community service events. You might know them from our haunted high school, for any of you who visited the high school during Halloween. They run that event. They do a number of different things for March of Dimes, as well as Mama Mare and a bunch of other organizations. Do really great work. The first student I'd like to recognize, well, actually, there's 3. They are awarded first place in network design. They are Ashani Anklasaria, Mahathi Gunlapaldi, and Shreya Singh. Is anyone here tonight from that group? This student was awarded first place in hospitality management, Rihanna Doshi. This student was awarded first place in organizational leadership, Sena Lagalin. This student was awarded first place in hospitality management. Her name is Shrija Manapali. These 2 students were awarded first place in business plan, Nikita Nair and Nithin Rajesh. This student was awarded first place in network concepts, Abhay Shidararti. These 3 students were awarded first place in Life Smarts, Manan Shah, Kimi Yadapali, and Rashmi Kapsi. Oh, and I'm sorry, there's one more, Ria Sharma. Just want to say thank you to Ms. Stupinski for DECA and Ms. Dale for FBLA and all the other business teachers for their efforts in molding MTHS's students into tomorrow's business and community leaders.
Hi, Ria.
Last group tonight, I'm hoping someone's here because maybe we can make them sing for us. That's Chorus. They're advised by Ariel Klein. Chorus is an ensemble of MTHS singers who meet weekly to practice for their various school and community concerts, and they do a fantastic job. The following students were all elected to the 2019 New Jersey Treble All-State Chorus. First one is Lahari Gumandyala. Next, Naranjana Iyer. Shannon Leff. Trisha Sringari. And Jessica Skirton and Sierra Martinez. I believe those 2 students are at the play. So. They must have known I was going to have them sing on the spot. That's why they're not here. The following student was selected to 2018 New Jersey Mixed All-State Chorus. His name is Nicholas Locasio. He's also singing. Yeah, I think all of these kids will be with Mr. Burns tonight. Following students were selected for both the 2018 New Jersey Mixed All-State Chorus as well as the 2019 NAFME All-Eastern Chorus. This is the cream of the crop. Antonio Zarco, Nithya Kumar, and Mary Price. Thank you, Ms. Klein, and to all the other course teachers for their continued dedication to our student success. If you are interested in some of the things that we do here at the high school, I have an Instagram page, which is also linked to our Twitter. You can find us at the ampersand, MTHS Club. So please give us a follow. We appreciate all the support. I try to get at least 1 or 2 posts out a day. Thank you very much for your attention, and have a great evening. I have to say afternoon.
We are so lucky in this district to have awesome kids involved in so many activities that they relate to our school district. So congratulations to all our winners, those who were here and those who are busy doing other things related to school. Thanks. At this time, we will have our district goals presentation with Mr. Goodall.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call down Ms. Bonnie Casaletto, Ms. Shari Chanley, Dr. Adam Lehman, and Mr. Antonio Pepe to update the district goals. Back in the fall, the administrative team presented district goals for the school year, and routinely throughout the year, we've been updating the board on our progress, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the updates from the high school, the middle school, and the elementary division tonight.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bonnie Casaletto, and I'm the District K-12 Supervisor of Sciences and Social Studies. I passed out some materials to our board members earlier this evening. On your table in front of you, you'll find a document that I intended to give you a walkthrough, but for the sake of saving a little time tonight, I'll let you peruse the document yourself. It has a compendium, thank you, of information relating to our district civic education goals. So you'll see that I've captured the pending legislation. At the moment, there are 5 pending Senate bills and 4 Assembly bills framed around civic education. Dr. Alvik and myself make it our business to stay on the very forefront of all of this so that we can prepare instructionally for the changes that come as they do when the legislation is passed. I've also captured a number of our activities that our students participate in each year. So I'll let you take a look through that at your leisure, and we'll move along with our presentation. Thank you. Maybe. There we go. Okay, well, most schools-sponsored civic initiatives help students investigate deliberate programs. Here in Monroe, we really use a hybrid and a K-12 multifaceted approach to civic education in the classroom. So we don't, by standard, use a particular source. What we like to do is give our students, all of our students, a really global perspective on what it means to be civically informed. And that's at the K-12 level. And it looks different in every classroom. So in our K-2 classrooms, it looks like we're studying symbols. We're becoming more recognition with all of the facets that belong to civic responsibility, how to be a good helper, how to be tolerant, how to embrace diversity and how we are alike, and the beauty of how we are different. So our district goal is really framed around our vision statement, which is to promote historic civic understanding via rich classroom and community opportunities, help students model and embrace our civic responsibility, and empower students to be civically competent through collaborative scholarship and leadership. And with the collaborative scholarship and leadership, I think what we just saw before this presentation was really a clear vision of how involved our students are. Our students study history, citizenship, political science, geography, economics, anthropology, sociology, civics, and humanities. As they study the human condition in these contexts, they gain an understanding of our own country's history, institutions, and environment. And then they also have the opportunity to apply their knowledge to understand the forces that are shaping the world around us every day. 2 new special programs that we are incorporating this year that I'd like to share with you are our Falcon Civics. So if you had the opportunity to move along and look at our district homepage, We have a new portal there this year, which is sort of a brag of all of the ways that our students are embracing civic opportunities in our district. So I encourage you to check that out. Again, that's iFalcon Civics. Another new program that will be kicking off in September will be Monroe Day. So the vision for Monroe Day is that in each K-12 social studies classroom, teachers will have a list of activities that will feature a local perspective in history of our local history of our community that they can share with students in their classroom. So in identifying some of the needs of our social studies programming, this Monroe Day will really work towards building a citizenry within our student body that better understands our local community. And we all know how that has changed so over the past decade. So this will help students understand how this beautiful community went from an agrarian society to where we are now. So it's kind of the then and now. So there'll be some featured activities for grade bands K2 students, 3-5, 6-8, and 9-12. And teachers will have the option to pull from a basket of activities and have students engage in some scavenger hunts, some mapping and examining that, pictures of now and then. And we also are working with partners with the Monroe Township Historical Commission, and that has really been some wonderful work this year. So a Monroe pilot team has been established with teachers who, with myself, are working with the Historical Commission to expand this into a year 2, year 3, where we hope to, down the road, be taking trips to really see Dye Farm, the schoolhouse, and perhaps even have an elementary field day on site there. So that's kind of our long-term vision. So the focus would be to really share this lovely community and have students better understand the grassroots of how it evolved historically. So those two are the major changes in our civic education programming. I'll now pass it off to Mrs. Chanley, who will speak to some of the changes at Monroe Township Middle School.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to everyone regarding the changes that are going to be occurring at the middle school. So let me just see if it's going to work. Maybe not. Okay, so we have our beautiful flag there. And I'll eventually get to the next picture, but in the meanwhile, I will speak. Thank you very much. So basically, I've been here for 16 years, and during that time, we've been having the opportunity without any, utilizing a particular course of study, but just knowing that when children get to the middle school, we want to continue in the value education of what it means to do the right thing, make good choices. I believe we heard the word kindness, being kind, being a helper, and we take it to the next level. And for those of you that may have had an opportunity to visit the middle school, we have a lot of statements actually posted, and there are mantras, and one of the mantra is creating a good citizen. And as we move through life and we move through the changing times, we are tasked with the responsibility of creating good citizens in a very global community, a very global society, and a very global world. But at the same time, it's very important in order to have quality education in the concept of globalness, we need to know what it means to be at home. So I'm very, very proud and very excited that we're going to be having a written curriculum that is going to be studied specifically in the 7th grade. And what that's going to do for us is that's going to allow us to take citizenship to the level of beginning at home with the concept of Americanism. And when I say Americanism, I truly mean what it means to live in America. And I recently had a conversation with some students because I tasked them, and I don't know why this machine doesn't like me, but it doesn't. It doesn't like me. Nope, doesn't like me. Maybe it likes you. So basically, what I'm trying to say is we have numerous activities. We have all these events. We have Veterans Day celebrations. We have community outreach. We would do a multitude of things to bring home what it means to live in America, to have these wonderful opportunities, and how it affects not only our country, but the countries around us, how it affects not only Monroe, but the communities around us, how it affects New Jersey and the states around us. That being said, we are very excited once we found that we were going to, thank you, that's perfect. We were very excited when we found that we're going to have a curriculum, and we jumped on the bandwagon. As you know, in Monroe, we try and do things ahead of the curve, as Ms. Castelletto said, because we feel that we're fabulous, because we are. And we're going to be teaching civics education formally in the school, although it is not required to the year following, starting in September. What does that mean? So basically, we're going to have the students in the 7th grade matriculate through classes for 2 9-week period times out of 4 9 weeks. And what that will be there where they'll have not just the textbook, but a true learning experience that they've had in bits and drabs in the middle school. Veterans Day, community outreach programs where we've had people come in, we've had the children work alongside people who have lived through maybe the Korean War, who have lived through Holocaust, various different genocides, speakers that come to our school. But now they'll be able to have a classroom where they'll have a set curriculum in which they can now learn the concept of citizenship and then take it to the next level by having these outside activities. It is important to note that although it will be in the 7th grade, we have activities that begin in the 6th grade that allow the children to have these large level group presentations and experiences. Then they'll have the classroom experience in the 7th grade, and then in 8th grade it goes right into U.S. history, which is a very nice feeder right into the 8th grade program. I am very passionate personally about this program. I was very excited to find out that it was a board goal when Mr. Goodall came and spoke with me, and we started to have the conversation with Dr. Alvick and the supervisors as well, and the administration. What does it look like? How it will be scheduled? How will it work? Is it possible within the middle school day? I was so excited that, as you can see from this particular picture, down there in red, I went to go visit the art class, and I said to our art students in Miss Williams' class, I would like you, I'm going to commission you. I am a community member, and I've commissioned now a piece of art, and it is going to be presented at our graduation. I would like you to make me something that stands for what it means to be in the country of America, totally having an understanding of, you know, being a falcon. So it's not done yet, you really can't see it, but it's going to be a falcon embracing the flag. And I think I'm going to end on this note before I go ahead and introduce our elementary principals. I think it's very important that I make this statement because of our diverse community. When I went into this classroom, I was very, very clear that we are celebrating all backgrounds. We are celebrating all of our globalness. But every day when we go to work, and every day when we wake up, and every day when we go to sleep, whether we make a living or get our education, we do it in the country of the United States of America. So although I am extremely respectful of all of our diversity, and I did make a little joke, which I will share, that my family were not pilgrims. And I mean that with the utmost respect, literally. My family comes from a multitude, at least 7 different Eastern European countries. So although I have great respect from the migration of where my people came from and the melting pot that we have become, I think it is very important that when we teach our children multiculturalism and we teach them to have respect for the world around us, we must first start with our home of where we wake up every day, and that is America. So this is something near and dear to my heart. I want to thank the Board of Education for approving this goal and for making it possible to begin as a commencement of September. So I thank you very much. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Adam Lehman, excuse me, Dr. Adam Lehman from Woodland.
Good evening. Mr. Pepe and I were asked to provide a brief update on the elementary district goals. Tonight we're going to focus on 4 areas: Monroe Unified, the whole child, civics, and STEAM. So building upon the work done through the fall and the winter, the Monroe Unified program in the elementary schools continues to grow and move forward. The monthly visits pictured in the slide continue providing students unified physical, social, emotional, and problem-solving opportunities between our elementary students and high school students. Our next event is the Falcon Palette Junior Night, It's May 13th. It's coming up. It's next Monday. And it's going to provide an opportunity for our unified students and their parents to participate in a painting activity and network amongst each other. It's facilitated by the Monroe Township High School art students and Kathy Dillon, who is the true heartbeat behind the Unified program. And just a shout out to Kathy Dillon for the Monroe Unified t-shirts. Mr. Pepe and I are wearing them tonight, and she's your go-to staff member if you need a t-shirt to support a really good cause in the district. So thank you very much for the t-shirts. A culminating event for the program is also coming up in the end of May, the Unified Field Day, during which elementary, middle, and high school Unified students will participate in field day activities here at the high school. Next, there we go. Next, we have the continued focus on our whole child at the elementary level. As you've seen through several demonstrations and videos here at the board meetings, our students and teachers have been integrating mindfulness practices throughout the school day. Specifically, toxic stress impairs attention, emotion and mood regulation, sleep, and learning readiness. To address this, we've had teacher and student-led mindfulness sessions focusing on deep breathing and stress management. Throughout our schools, we have brain break stations, and in addition to what we do in school, Dr. Alvich and the District Whole Child Committee hosted an elementary whole child parent event. This event provided elementary parents an opportunity to learn strategies for helping children deal with stress, anxiety. They provided technological solutions and practical tips on managing these issues. So thank you, Dr. Alvich and the Whole Child Committee for planning these events. So next up, Mr. Pepe, he's going to fill us in on the civics and STEAM goals.
Thank you, Dr. Lehman. So Ms. Casaletto obviously spoke about the district-wide perspective on civics. I just wanted to highlight some of the things we're doing at the elementary level to engage our students as productive citizens and productive members of society. At the upper elementary, we have student councils in each of our schools. It's an opportunity for our 5th grade students to engage in a leadership role around the school. We try to, before they leave elementary school, instill a sense of responsibility and leadership within our students. And one of the main ways that they can do that is by choosing to participate in student council. So they, throughout the year, make decisions about different causes that they'd like to support and engage in fundraisers for throughout the year. So it's one of the endeavors that we have. Our primary schools have programs where students that are 1st and 2nd graders are able to participate as hall monitors and security monitors in that way at the primary level. One of the things district-wide as a cause that over the last couple years we've kind of taken on is helping those less fortunate. I know you've heard over the last few years of different fundraisers, projects, and things going on in several of our schools. Hunger awareness is something that, you know, at Brookside is one of our flagship projects, the Empty Bowls Project, but has also expanded to a district-wide level. And all of our schools do different fundraisers and things that are related to hunger awareness. Notably, recently, we did a food drive for MC Foods. We did a supply drive for RISE Community Outreach. So our students are engaged in all of these programs and really have an opportunity to see how their actions can really impact their community going forward. The month of April, as many of you know, is Autism Awareness Month. Each of our schools had different activities going on. Some had themed weeks where there was dress-ups and fundraisers, lemonade sales, student walks, bracelet sales, to raise money for different organizations, primarily POAC. But it was really, I know I'll speak for our school in particular, it was really heartwarming to see some of the things that occurred as we honored inclusion in our school for the month of April. We had students decorate crayons. I'm speaking for Brookside. I know some of the schools did things a little bit differently. We had students decorate crayons that represented how they are unique and something that they're particularly proud of that makes them unique. And it was great to see the different ways that everybody interpreted that, and our kids and our staff members interpreted that, and we displayed them around, again, to give Miss Dillon some kudos Ms. Dillon was gracious enough to share an inclusion banner that the Special Olympics had provided to her for all the elementary schools. So that was kind of the centerpiece. We had our unique crayons around the banner, and all of our students in the building, all 400 students as of the end of business today, signed the banner. I know, like I said, several of our elementary schools had very similar activities for the month of April related to Autism Awareness Month. And then within the classroom, a lot of our teachers have really ramped it up in terms of engaging students in decision-making, creating groups within the classroom where kids are actually making decisions about real-world problems that affect the community. And you're going to see a little bit more about that on the next slide. So each of our elementary schools has a makerspace now, which is a learning space where students can go in, think creatively, think authentically, and again, solve real-world problems, create solutions with, either independently or in small groups. In my opinion, and having been, around our schools in the district and in some other schools in surrounding districts, we have maker spaces within our elementary schools that are exemplary and are to be commended. There are resources that our students have at their disposal that are unlike those that districts around us have. And our teachers have really committed to engaging our students in our maker spaces, and also in the classroom, bringing some of those tools to the classroom to get the kids creating and doing things that, that don't necessarily have an answer or one set solution, getting them to learn how to think critically. Notably, many of our elementary schools had maker nights where they showcased the maker space, gave parents an opportunity to come in and explore some of the materials and resources that students have available to them. Barclay Brook and Brookside had an evening of code where we pooled our resources together. We had about 120 families that showed up, and it was kind of like playtime, and the parents got down on their knees with their kids, and they kind of like rolled up their sleeves and got to explore some of the things that the kids see during the school day, which was really great. So that was one, in terms of STEAM, you guys as a board and as a public, you've heard about it over the last couple of years in terms of its infusion into our schools. In my opinion, those type of night events that engaged our parents kind of takes things to the next level and really ties it together. And then just notably, to my earlier point about the resources that we have become in some ways the envy of surrounding districts. We've hosted East Windsor, we've hosted visitors from Old Bridge that are here to look at what our maker spaces look like, the type of resources that our kids have at their disposal. They're there to hear about how we've implemented the maker spaces and some of the things that our kids do while they're in there. Okay, and then just to transition to our closing. We're fortunate enough, and none of anything that we talked about would be possible without wonderful students and a great staff. And so to close our portion of the presentation, I've invited a perfect example of that. Some of our third grade students from Brookside, along with Mrs. Bertini and Miss Dempsey, who would like to share their experiences with you integrating STEAM in their third grade classroom. And after we hear from them, you'll have an opportunity to see them in action. So, Miss Bertini, Miss Dempsey. Okay, so from Ms. Bertini and Ms. Dempsey's class, we have Julian, Lizzie, Lila, Gabriella, Smaran, and Anish.
Good evening. STEAM projects have been incorporated into our classroom throughout the year to enhance our students' learning experience and engagement. We have been so impressed by their creativity and projects that they have produced are always beyond our expectations.
Our third grade students demonstrated a great deal of interest in our communities unit this year. As the culminating activity, we created a STEAM challenge for them to work on. We presented our students with various problems unique to each type of community. Together, they analyzed the concerns of the community to develop a solution. We have invited some students from our class to reflect on their experiences with this project.
This STEM project was exciting and challenging for me because I was able to show my creative side by building a bridge. It was challenging because our group had so many great ideas on how to build a bridge. I love doing STEM projects because they are fun and we learn so much by working with our friends.
The STEAM project was focused on engineering by allowing us to build and create different solutions for our community. One day, I want to be a mechanical or software engineer one day. So STEAM projects can really help you with everyday life skills.
This STEAM project helped me use problem-solving strategies with my group to create a greenhouse. We learned to listen and work together to create this project.
The STEAM challenge was fun because we used iPads to research for our community. My favorite part of this STEAM challenge was when we built our greenhouse. This will help me be a good engineer one day. This project helped me to understand how an architect builds different houses. It was fun because we used iPads to research and then we gathered materials to build our solution.
So at this time, we'd like to show a very short video that Ms. Bertini and Ms. Dempsey put together at the culminating portion of the project that the students were speaking about. Just in closing, on behalf of the elementary administrative team, I'd like to thank the Board of Ed and our community for all their support that they're giving to our students and staff this year. None of this could be possible without your support, so thank you very much.
Thank you. So I'd like to thank our administrative staff for the comprehensive update on our school goals and for bringing some more of our students in front of us tonight to showcase not only our students, but the wonderful programs that we have in our district. So thank you again.
Thank you to Ms. Bertini and Ms. Dempsey for coming out tonight. Thank you very much, and the administrative team, thank you. And we will do our final update and close in the June meeting.
Okay, sounds good. So at this time, we will have the public hearing on the 2019-2020 final budget presentation. Mr. Gorski, I believe you're taking care of that?
Yes, ma'am.
It'll be very challenging to top those presentations tonight, so I'm not even going to try. We have a short final budget adoption with a few slides for the audience, but it's important to understand the chronology of how we got here and the contributions that have refined our budget to this final adoption. Subsequent to the preliminary budget adoption, we submitted the budget to the county office where it received accolades and a prompt approval for advertising. Thanks to Mrs. Tagliaferro, our budget was advertised in a timely fashion in all the local papers, presenting to the community many different areas of our budget and the tax impact and required information from the county. We posted what's required by the state called the user-friendly budget to the website. This shows revenues, appropriations, cost per pupil information, and other statistical information having to do with our budget. And then we had an unfortunate circumstance where, despite a good solid plan and all of the effort involved, our bond referendum was defeated. And certainly, as you can imagine, our bond referendum impacts and ties directly into our long-term and short-term fiscal goals. So responsibly, the board members led by Mr. Pelori, Mrs. Kolopanowicz, Mr. Rutsky, challenged administration to take another look at the budget and make some defensive refinements to the budget and reposition ourselves, not anticipating relief coming in September of 2022 with the schools opening, but now with the potential of trailers coming and other circumstances that we talked about during the presentations. So we went back to Finance Committee, led by Mr. Rutsky, and Mr. Goodall, Dr. Alvick, and I, after speaking with all of the stakeholders involved administratively, being the principals, vice principals, supervisors, and directors, came up with a list of items that are important to different people. That's why they are in the budget. They're aligned with board and district goals. However, they don't meet the priorities of our defensive posture change. So we presented to the committee, I think it was about $1.5 million worth of potential cuts, all of which had consequences, all of which had negative implications for somebody. And we disclosed that to the committee. We went through every single cut, and I was very impressed with the way the Finance Committee worked very efficiently to go through and determine what changes needed to be made. This is the Finance Committee led by Mr. Paul Rutsky, Mrs. Michelle Arminio is the Vice Chair, Mr. Andy Pelori again, and Mrs. Rupa Siegel. Mrs. Kathy Kolopanowicz is an ex officio Finance Committee member. As Board President, she sits on all the committees. Next slide, please. We started with revenues. Mr. Pelori challenged us, being that we're going to have some financial difficulties anticipated in the next couple years with trailers and growth, to consider putting back the reserves that were appropriated in the 1920 budget. The first reserve that was initially presented to the board during the budget philosophy meeting was to take some money from the iPad one-to-one initiative account. This is where we charge insurance from students, and there was an intent from policy that this money be used during the refreshment where the old models get sold and we have new ones on lease. We were planning on using $400,000. We have now returned that into the reserve accounts for future use. Another use that was in the preliminary budget was $200,000 from the unemployment fund reserve. We are at fairly full employment, and our unemployment claims are lower than the contributions coming from staff. We are self-funded for unemployment, and we were going to use some of those reserves, which the board did contribute from the general fund in years back in 2008 when we had a lot of claims. We have since returned that $200,000 back to the unemployment fund reserve. We also came up with a new proprietary redesign of our use of building program. Currently, in accordance with policy, the board lends out the facilities to the community and we basically recoup our costs. We do not profit at all from any of the use of our facilities. Other districts, including East Brunswick, for example, have a very profitable use of building program, but this board and previous boards have always felt that the schools belong to the community. They pay a handsome amount of taxes for their upkeep. They should have the enjoyment of them. This is a slight realignment of that, and we're going to go back to policy now to come up with the actual specifics of how this is going to work. But in speaking with administrative staff, we're confident that we can raise another $75,000 by redesigning the use of building program with a more proprietary aspect, especially for out-of-district residents. That's going to be our focus. We also put back some estimates on miscellaneous income. And then our board president said, this is great, we're putting back reserves, we're squirreling monies away for the future instead of using them now. This is going to have a hardship on some people, and this went through the defense rounds, but it's a prudent thing to do in the wake of a defeat. But also, we heard from the community very clearly about taxes. This community, because of the lack of state aid that we receive predominantly, pays a larger share of local taxes than other communities. And the board and Mrs. Koloponowicz challenged us, in addition to putting back the reserves, to consider getting the tax increase under a 2-cent increase for this year. Those familiar with those terms of a 2-cent increase understand how low of an increase that was. Before it was about 2.21, if I recall. And the challenge to get it under 2 would have required another $275,000 worth of cuts. We've accomplished all of this on the revenue side. The budget was adjusted by $815,000 on the revenue side. Next is the matching appropriations that were removed from the budget. And bear with me, I'm looking at an angle here. We'll start with transportation. Our preliminary budget, as previous budgets, had about $1 million of courtesy busing included in the budget. What does that mean? What is courtesy busing? That is a non-mandated transportation service where we provide busing services to students not required by law. Now, in many areas of town, working closely with the transportation director, we've identified hazardous areas that we are not comfortable considering with these modifications. But some that were, and were approved by the Finance Committee, were the elimination of the 415 late runs at the high school and middle school, with the exception of the curriculum-related talented and gifted program. Those buses will still be commencing at 415. But in the 1920 school year, the late runs for the high school and middle school will be eliminated, saving $68,250. Also, transportation courtesy busing for Oak Tree School was eliminated. We got rid of 6 bus routes, and this is allowing students to walk safely where a pathway exists from adjacent streets to Oak Tree School. That saved $192,000, and according to all the administrators involved, did not pose a safety risk from either of these or any of the transportation cuts we're recommending. Finally, Woodland School, there was a courtesy busing elimination, again where there are sidewalks present and crossing guards exist, saving 2 buses, $64,000. Transportation for the high school freshman orientation, which is a 2-day program, along with the program itself, has been eliminated with these cuts. Also, we had proposed new high school clubs for $11,862. These were not in the previous year's budget. They were proposed new, and they are eliminated. We also eliminated some proposed additional staff. One was an Oak Tree grade 1 teacher with benefits. And Dr. Alvick, at any time, if you want to comment on how we're working around some of these with the creative solutions that you presented, please feel free. Also, we're eliminating 2 full-time positions from the Monroe Township Middle School. one high school business teacher. These were all proposed new, not in existence before. One proposed new elementary art shared teacher. One proposed new media specialist, which is being changed to a media coordinator. We changed the deductible for legal expenses, which used to be $15,000 down to $10,000. That saved $15,000. And the proposed vestibule design, where we're having safety enhancements to our schools, will certainly remain because that was a budget philosophy imperative. But what we're doing is applying safety grants against these projects. These are external revenue sources that will reduce the required appropriations. So that's $815,000 worth of cuts. Now the next slide shows the tax consequence of these cuts. The $275,000 reduction of the general fund levy brought the tax increase from 2.17 cents, which again is a very attractive increase in my opinion compared to prior years. It's below the 7-year median, but it took it down even lower to 1.99 cents of increase. Instead of $68.87 for an average assessed home at approximately $315,000, it dropped to $63.25. And where that doesn't seem very great, the emphasis here is on the board doing everything we can, even the small things add up, and the impact on this tax levy by a reduction of $275,000 cumulatively does have an effect, and it's showing that the board is doing everything possible, including giving up some programs that had made it through defense rounds and in alignment with board and district goals to eliminate or postpone those until future years. So at this time, I would like to make a motion to the board and then have a public hearing and then board deliberation on the final budget adoption. It is recommended that the members of the Monroe Township Board of Education approve the following amounts and resolution for the 2019-2020 final budget. Be it resolved by the Monroe Township Board of Education that the 2019-20 general fund budget be adopted in the amount of $121,614,666 and a general fund local tax levy in the amount of $104,513,898 and a special revenue fund in the amount of $1,231,733 and a debt service budget in the amount of $11,608,076 and a debt service local tax levy in the amount of $11,182,375, whereby the 2019-2020 budget totals $134,454,475. And whereas the Monroe Township Board of Education has been notified of state aid amounts, and whereas such state aid amounts are for the 1920 categorical special education aid is $3,058,774, and for the 1920 categorical security aid is $103,764, and the 1920 categorical transportation aid is $2,753,019, and for the 1920 debt service aid is $425,697. And whereas the Monroe Township Board of Education has estimated a state aid amount pursuant to application, and for the 1920, the estimated extraordinary aid amount is $350,674. Whereas policy number 6471 and NJAC 6A23A7.3 provides that the Board of Education shall establish in the annual school budget a maximum expenditure amount that may be allotted for such travel and expense reimbursement for the 1920 school year. Now therefore be it resolved that the Monroe Township Board of Education hereby establishes the school district travel maximum for the 1920 school year at the tentative sum of $158,422. And be it further resolved that the school business administrator shall track and record these costs to ensure that the maximum amount is not exceeded. And be it further resolved that, as recommended by the board's budget philosophy resolution, that the board transfer $600,000 of retained earnings from the proprietary funds of Falcon Care and ECE, Early Childhood Enrichment, as a revenue source in the 1920 general fund budget. Whereas due to the consistent student enrollment growth, facility needs, and other priorities set forth in the board's budget philosophy resolution, the board is budgeting to maximum spending authority, including $325,000 of the available $600,000 of bank cap from the 16-17 school year. The $275,000 difference will permanently expire with the adoption and approval of this budget. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the superintendent of schools and the business administrative board secretary file the required documents with the executive county superintendent.
Motion and a second. Mr. Rutsky?
Can I make a motion?
Yes. Second by Mr. Polari. First by Mr. Rutsky, second by Mr. Polari. Any comments or questions for Mr. Gorski from board members? Ms. DeMayo?
Since I'm not on finance, I don't know the details of the discussions, but have we considered having seniors who drive opt out of bus routes in order to save money?
Can you repeat that, Ms. DeMayo?
Have we considered having students who drive opt out of bus routes to save money?
I will say that the Board of Education has looked at that previously, and these students are required to have a seat on the bus by state law. And even though some of them have private or alternate transportation to the schools, quite often we found in the past that it's not consistent. Sometimes they'll still, the car's not available, they'll need to take the bus into school. So I recall at the time we decided we had to still leave those spots on buses.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then at this time, I'm going to open it up to the public. If anyone in the public has any questions in regard to the budget, please come up and give your name and address for the record. And this is public forum just on the budget.
Roger Maney, 22 Harrigan Avenue, Monroe, New Jersey. I just had a question. I heard you say Woodland School, the busing for the kids that didn't live within that are within the 2-mile radius have a crossing guard?
Mr. Gorski? It's courtesy busing for
Because
Woodland.
no crossing guard exists at that school anywhere. I live 1 block from there, and I see kids dodging cars and everything to get to school every day.
We reviewed these carefully with the transportation director. We looked at the routing software. We spoke with all the administrators involved. And the cuts here are for the Woodland area, clearly where there are sidewalks for the students to walk to school and crossing guards exist.
No, they
to
don't.
eliminate 2 buses.
They don't exist, and sidewalks don't exist. There's absolutely no sidewalks on Brunswick Avenue. There's no sidewalks on Harrigan. There's no sidewalks on Harrison. And there's no crossing guard at Spotswood Englishtown Road at any of those corners.
Not every street has a sidewalk, but those students are still walkers and still walking there. We're not changing those routes.
But you're
But
implicating that there's a crossing guard
We
on
are,
duty,
for the
and there is
routes-
no crossing guard
Sir,
there.
for the routes we are eliminating, there are crossing guards and sidewalks. If you wish to come in the office, I'll be happy to show you on the routing software what I'm talking about.
If you'd like to have a cup of coffee with me tomorrow morning, I'll show you. There's no crossing guards there. Okay? None at all. My son is a senior in the high school. His car went in for service. He went to take the bus one day. The bus driver wouldn't let him on the bus. There is no crossing guard at Spotswood Englishtown Road anywhere for Woodland students. I don't care what your office says, what your paper says. My eyeballs don't lie. I've lived at that home for 14 years. I know what I see every day. I drive that road 50 times a week. There's no crossing guard there. Take a ride there and see it for yourself.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Good evening, Chrissy Skirby, 21 Preakness Drive. I guess my question relates to the transportation for Oak Tree next year. I have a child starting there in the fall, so I'm just trying to understand what the changes in the bus transportation will be. How many routes are being eliminated?
Mr. Gorski?
6 bus routes are eliminated where a pathway exists from adjacent homes to Oak Tree School where the students can safely walk there.
So it's just Oak Tree, it's not Applegarth as well?
Just Oak Tree.
And what is is there a distance? Is there like a minimum walking distance? Because I know there are several developments behind Oak Tree that do have sidewalks that do lead up to Oak Tree. Is there a minimum distance?
These cuts that are proposed to the board tonight are adjacent to Oak Tree School, which means directly next to. So it is an extreme minimum distance. I don't have the actual measurement, but it is right next door to the school.
Well, there's a development right behind Oak Tree. Is it that development as well?
It's adjacent to the school.
Is that the development behind Oak Tree School?
You're welcome to contact me in the office, and I can give you the exact proposed changes.
Why can't you answer that now? I mean, I'm sure you know
This level
where
of
it is.
detail we presented to the finance committee and it satisfied.
And we can't tell the public this evening?
No, that was, beg your pardon, there was 2 minutes remaining from the prior speaker.
I'm just trying to figure out where that is. I thought that was a fair question. The public should be able to understand where that is. My other question is the 415 bus routes that are cut, does that eliminate the busing for students at the high school and the middle school for clubs?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, and approximately how many bus routes was that?
It varies. We don't have the number of bus routes for that, but the cost for the total was $68,250.
And do we know how many students that affects?
I don't have that information with me, but we did present that at finance.
All right. It's sad that the public doesn't have that information tonight, as this is the public hearing for the budget. And we, the public, should understand what is being affected to our children. And it's shameful that you can't answer those questions publicly.
No, may I respond to that?
Mr. Pelori, that it would not be appropriate during public forum. When we close public forum, you can respond. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Okay, seeing no one, we will close the public forum. Mr. Pelori, you can ask your question.
No, my only comment was I think if I understood correctly, Mr. Grosky is asking the previous speaker to come and get the details from the office.
Yes.
So you don't have the details right now. That's all there is to this, correct?
Madam?
Mr. Gorski.
The county office requires a presentation tonight at the final adoption, clearly identifying the changes, mainly in figurative format of what's being adjusted in the budget. And because of that, it's an abbreviated presentation compared to some of the more lengthy ones we had before. We went over more of this detail at Finance Committee. I didn't bring everything with me. And anybody who has a question about anything having to do with the budget is more than welcome to call me at any time. I'm very pleased to talk about the budget.
Ms. Arminio?
Yes. I do agree, however, that in a public hearing, especially for a budget of $130 million a year, that we ask our taxpayers to gleefully support, that we should, go into as much detail as possible despite what our minimum requirements are. And I think if we talk, and as I understood, adjacent meant any development that directly borders Oak Tree School. Can we make that determination? That's how I understood it in the Finance Committee, so that's why I approved that. So is that close to being correct? I mean, if I'm wrong, I'd like to be corrected now.
Do you have an answer to that? Because my assumption was a little bit different.
Okay, so then,
Is
yeah,
that,
let's-
Madam, beg your pardon. Do you want me to address that?
go ahead.
The summary that I brought to the meeting tonight is that these Oak Tree courtesy busing routes are adjacent to the school and a pathway exists. This is a perfect and an optimal situation for a child to safely walk to school. That's what we're talking about here with these elimination. Currently, we have a 54-passenger bus. 6 of them drive to an adjacent community to pick up students who could walk to school more efficiently. And then, speaking with all the stakeholders involved, we looked at every safety aspect of this, and we're comfortable recommending these cuts.
No, you go ahead. I think the point's being missed. It's just a question of which developments. Everybody wants to know which developments. If it's 6 buses, that's 300 kids. I doubt that's coming out of one development to go to Oak Tree School. So I think we're just trying to figure out which developments, on the sides, behind, their name.
I would need the routing software in order to answer which
Right.
developments that's impractical to bring to the final budget hearing, where we're just talking about tailoring the budget. If you wish, anybody can contact me. We will. It's very premature before the start of this school year, where we'll provide any transportation information on routing. None of that stuff has even been developed yet. So to talk about developments, I'm uncomfortable with it this time. But it is, again, Oak Tree. It is a courtesy, non-mandated transportation service where a pathway exists that we currently send a 54-passenger bus, 6 of them, to pick up students adjacent to the school. This is the most sensible transportation cut as recommended by our Director of Transportation.
Madam,
Ms. Arminio.
And I get that, but since we've identified 6 buses, we should be able to identify where those buses went, so where they're going to be eliminated. That's the only question. I think it's a reasonable question. Look, budget cuts are very, very difficult. No one wants to do them. But we know which 6, apparently, have been recommended for elimination. So I would think that we sort of would know on a broad scale, and maybe, by September, things would change. When, if not tonight, when would people be notified that those buses will not be arriving?
Sometime over the summer, where we're designing the routes with the routing software and the Director of Transportation.
Could we do it by July? Because people who have been getting busing, I mean, let's be a little considerate of those we ask to pay their taxes on time. They need to make arrangements for their children, whether they either take them, walk them themselves. I mean, so I think it would be reasonable to give them like a 60-day window, and we can say it's a tentative window, just to be fair, that we know, when this is going to happen. Because we've had this issue before, even before I was on the board, and it is a reasonable issue for parents to be concerned about their children. And going to the safety aspect of it, the gentleman previous, I would think that we should make if we pass this budget, what I expect that it will pass, that if we find out that it is not safe for children to walk to a school, then we might have to reinstitute something, even though we want to try to cut the budget. If there's I believe that if people live on a block, they sort of know if there's a sidewalk there or not. And if there's no sidewalks, these are young children, and if there's no crossing guard, then we have to step up and make those changes and spend the money for that, because we talk about safety for our children. It's all about the kids. So, we have to leave room open for that consideration. We see black and white on paper, we see routes, we see all that, but the faces of the children are really what is the most important thing that we should look at.
And we have done that in the past, where we have eliminated
So I
something
just
and put
want to be
something back.
clear, if I vote yes for this, which I intend to do, that we are leaving it open for the practical aspect of it. This is on paper, this is calculation, it's what we needed to do, unfortunately, but we have to be cognizant of when it becomes a reality that our children are in the safest place. So thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Arminio. I would have appreciated a lot of those questions to come up during Finance Committee, and I mean that respectfully, because that's the time when we had more of the routing information and the more specifics on this. This is the final leg of this, where we're summarizing it and presenting it. When we do the routing software, which occurs in July and August, it's a time of year where we have heavy student enrollment in the schools. Our office that enrolls new pupils is humming around the clock during the day. So we wait till that time slows a bit, and then we do the routing software, so it's not constantly being adjusted and students are constantly in turmoil with adding and deleting spots. Safety is always paramount when it comes to every administrator's job here. So that's why we spend, as a board, $1 million a year for courtesy busing that's not required by law. We would never put a child in a harmful circumstance walking to or from school. These are the easiest fruit to pick as far as transportation adjustments. Many school districts that we surveyed don't have courtesy busing like this anymore. And these routes for Oak Tree and Woodland, again, we've deliberated extensively, and we as a team believe they are safe.
And one final thing.
Ms. Arminio?
Yeah, and I, Mr. Gorski, and I trusted your recommendation at the meeting. I'm responding to the public forum for this budget. So when you made the recommendations, like I said, I understood that adjacent meant directly adjacent. So I did trust your recommendation, and perhaps I failed to ask a question. But when the public, members of the public brought it up, I thought it was just my duty to just express my understanding and my position. Thank you.
And I don't see why there can't be some kind of a notice to parents by the beginning of the summer that is going to eliminate certain bus routes. I think to have them wait until the middle of August to the end of August is certainly not fair to them. So I think we'll, as an administrative team, try to do everything we can to make sure that parents are aware of that. Mrs. Lang?
Yesterday, I had actually sent an email requesting information about the walkers for Woodland School, because I have a concern about the two roads that they go down in Brunswick Avenue, and basically the same concerns that Mr. Meany just brought up. Is there any way that I had understood at the finance meeting, because I had covered for Mr. Pelori, that the township said that they would be providing crossing guards at Englishtown Road. Is there something that you can get for us to show us that there'll be those crossing guards? Because I am still concerned about the walking and the path. And I know, Dr. Alvick, you said there were walkers when you were there. Can you tell me a little bit, like, what that looks like?
When I was the assistant principal at Woodland School, this is probably going back 13, 14 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We did have walkers at Woodland School at that time. There was a crossing guard that was at the church on that corner. That's where she would park. Students who came down that road, they would have to cross just that road. I'm not sure which one it was. It's the one next to the church.
Right.
So if you're coming from the board office down Spotswood Englishtown Road, the closest road
Right.
to Woodland, they would walk down the left side of that road and then along the sidewalk there. I don't know if that's changed. Clayton. There's still a crossing guard there. So she parks in that the church there, and that's where she walks the students. So there are still students, there are still walkers. So we currently have walkers at Woodland School.
Okay.
This is just expanding that.
And it's 2 buses, I think, that we're talking about eliminating. It's not, right?
2 buses, it says, yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chiarella?
Yeah, so I would just like to say that I was fully behind this budget for the first pass. The addition of these things, and I'm not on the finance committee, but the addition of these cuts puts a lot of questions in my mind. For one, in my opinion, I want to make sure that we're not taking punitive action to punish parents for the defeat of the referendum. Years ago, when we used to vote on our budgets, when we had budget defeats, we did take punitive action against parents. We cut busing, we cut before and after school busing, and we ended up later on reinstituting that busing. It was punitive, and it was to make parents feel pain so that they would vote for our budgets. And I don't know what the outcome of all these cuts will be, because this is the first I'm hearing of it. So I don't know if we've done any studies that will tell us what this will mean, what the impact will be to students, how it'll impact certain segments of our student population. For instance, with busing for clubs and things like that, will some students not be able to take part in extracurricular activities because maybe both parents work and they don't have that ability to have somebody drop them off and pick them up. So because of that, I'm going to vote no, and I just want to make sure that we don't go down the road where we start punishing our voters for defeating, for having defeats to our budgets in our referendum.
Anyone else?
Referenda.
The bond referendum. Okay, seeing no one, we will have a roll call, Mr. Gorski, on accepting the final budget.
Mrs. Lang?
Yes.
Mr. Ryback?
Yes.
Mr. Tefano?
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky?
Yes.
Mr. Pelori,
Yes.
Mrs. Siegel,
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella,
No.
Mrs. Arminio,
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo,
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Yes.
Madam Board President, motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, we will go on to our student board member report.
So in order to celebrate National College Commitment Day, which is tomorrow, and support the graduating class of seniors, MTHS students will be wearing their favorite college t-shirt tomorrow. And the MTHS Econ and Finance team at FBLA have worked together to celebrate graduation day with lawn signs, and they're available for the class of 2019 for both MTHS and MTMS graduates. From May 2nd to May 5th, MTHS will be hosting Crybaby the Musical in the Performing Arts Center. It's by the Drama Club. It's very good, I heard. Currently, a group of students are attending the DECA International Conference in Orlando, Florida. They will be competing in business-based events against students from around the world. And finally, AP testing for students registered will be administered throughout the next 2 weeks. In Barclay Brook, Mill Lake, and Woodland, they will be holding a flower shop sale organized by the PTA and PTO. And in the coming weeks, students from 1st to 8th grade will have NJSLA testing during the school day. And finally, Oak Tree currently has the Enviromobile Visiting, which is a program that fosters environmental responsibility in students from a young age. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we will go on to committee reports. Are there any committees that need to report? Ms. DeMayo?
We had a curriculum committee meeting tonight, and I'm pleased to say we had several visitors. I hope they come back next month. We had a short agenda. We discussed the NJ.com article on school scores, which included how scores were calculated and a comparison of district scores to comparable districts. Basically, what was talked about was, the question was, why did the middle school scores are lower? And, you know, it was an interesting discussion because when you compare middle schools across the state, there are different middle schools in terms of, we have a 6, 7, 8, there are some 7, 8s, there are some 7, 8, 9s. So you're really not comparing apples to apples. In addition, they remove from the calculation those students who are taking algebra and geometry, because those are high school level courses. So that really removes the higher performing students from these calculations. In addition, the school performance report under the ESSA included a 20% measurement for English language learners. So when a school has 20 or more students in this category, when a school has 20 or more students in this category. When a school does not have 20 or more students in this category, which Monroe does not, each of the other weights are increased. And what happens is the growth weight for those schools who have the English language learners are great, because those students really progress at a faster rate than the rest of the students. So that skews how the scores, the calculated score. Monroe Township schools' achievement scores are higher than state average across all schools. We have similar compared scores to peer school districts such as South Brunswick Middle School, Crossroads North and South, and districts with middle schools see a dip in scores during the middle school years for some reason. This is not only true for Monroe, but also for South Brunswick, East Brunswick, and West Windsor Plainsboro. Overall, though, we have higher than state averages for all our schools, and that's pretty much a summary. Is there anything else you want to add?
One of the things we did discuss too was talking about how the district uses these scores. So when we get them, and I do the presentation at a board meeting in the fall, we spend a lot of time looking at these scores. And again, these are only one test score. So we're looking at these in comparison to our DRA tests, our reading assessments at our elementary levels, and our MAP assessments that we're doing grades 3 through 12. Or I'm sorry, K through 11. So this is one score. So we use this, but we actually dig down to the standard and the question and how our students are doing on the standards and the questions. And we revise our curriculum, we revise the order of our curriculum to make our scores better. So we look to improve each year. rather than just the comparison between our schools.
Okay.
So if the scores come out in the future and there's concerns, you can call Dory. She'd be happy to explain.
Any other committee needing to report? Mrs. Lang?
We had our policy committee meeting on April 17th, and once again, a very productive meeting. As you go through the policies for voting today, you'll notice that there are a number of regulations, and what had happened is, through the process of looking at our CUSAC and getting prepared, we realized that we had been missing some regulations from our book. Dr. Alvick worked with the CUSAC people, and we got it all taken care of, and now that's why we're voting on those regulations. We have a couple mandated regulations that we are voting on, but the biggest part, which is continued throughout the state, is the changing in wording, and that is really what we're facing with a lot of the policies that we are dealing with in the future. But once again, a great committee to work with, so thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Chiarella?
You could go first, Mr. Pilar.
Had your hands up?
All right, thank you. All right, so we had a Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation meeting on April 17th. We reviewed 6 different topics. The first was the sale of our out-of-service vehicles, so those are the gutted buses and vehicles and things like that that are in various spots. And we're going through govdeals.com, and that auction should be processed as of July 1st. In the past, we've been able to make some money on those vehicles, and I can tell you that they're gutted. We've already pretty much cannibalized those for parts for our fleet, to keep our fleet going, and so they're basically burned out hulls without the burning. So they're windows broken, things like that, but we're able to get money for those, so we sell those on Gov Deals, and the money goes back into the general fund. At least I think it's the general fund. We also had a presentation regarding the Rutgers Cooperative Extension Water Resource Program at the middle school. And so there was a grant program for rain garden projects at the middle school, and we went through that, and District Science Supervisor Bonnie Casaletta is spearheading that. So we're looking forward to implementing that at the middle school, which I think will help with our overall effort to go green and help recharge the water basin and things like that, and that's what those rain gardens do. So I'm looking forward to seeing that and how that works. We also had an update on the middle school water heater replacement project. So we're currently going through bid plans, and the lowest bid, not the highest bid, but the lowest bid, the best bid, will be unveiled on May 8th at the public meeting at our next board meeting. We also reviewed the Monroe Commons lease agreement. So what we're looking at is a lease term of 3 years and an option for 2 single-year extensions, which provides for a negotiated increase at 2% a year. So we reviewed that. We had hoped that that our referendum would have passed, and we would have been able to eventually bring personnel services back into the schools. Unfortunately, that's not, with the failure of the referendum, that's not going to happen. So this is our best next move. I'm having trouble tonight. So to ensure that we're properly housed. And then we had an update on the shared services request from the fire department for diesel fuel. So fire district number 3 had asked to fuel at our bus depot. They are going to purchase their own key fob. We have a great system called the Gas Boy, which basically tells us whoever is using a fob, how much gas is coming out of there, whose fob it is, where it's going. So we're able to know every drop of fuel that leaves our depot. Well, the fire district is going to buy their own fob, and they will be reimbursing us for an annual fee of $1,200 in addition to the fuel. So that would help us, overall, just defer any costs. They're going to do that off hours, and so I think it's a great way for us to share services and benefit the taxpayers. So I think it's a good thing for us to be doing, and I thank the administration for bringing that forward to us and helping us make that deal. And now the last thing that I have, which is also a great thing, not shared services, but we were looking to put flashing safety lights at the Monroe Township High School and the middle school because of the concerns with speeding and things like that, and the overall concerns for the safety of our kids. And as Buildings and Grounds went through that, some of our members, Mr. Tefano, Mr. Polari, asked the administration to go and talk to the township and see if we can get maybe a shared services agreement or something like that. We studied it further, the administration studied it further, and we found that solar signs will work in those locations, that there's enough solar energy to power those batteries so that we can keep those going when we need them. And the township has agreed to pick up the cost of those signs. So it's a win-win all the way around. And that's it, that's my report.
Thank you. Ms. Arminio?
Can I just?
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Girella. I just thought of this now. Can we ask, so we can know maybe at the next meeting, I think those signs are good. Is there a traffic ordinance or some kind of traffic law that says if people don't abide by the flashing lights, there's a ticket or something like that? Do we know what the law is about that? Is that just like?
I don't know.
I don't know, I know. Could we find out maybe from the
Can
township?
I be the traffic engineer for a second and
there
not a
you
board
go.
member?
Yeah, if you have the answer.
The sign that's installed there is in conformation with the MUTCD, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is enforceable.
Okay, what does that mean in
Which
English?
which means that the police can issue summons if they see
It can
somebody
be.
violating.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
So if there's a violation or someone who's constantly doing that, okay, so it's good. It's enforceable.
As
is
long
what
as
the
Mr.
idea.
Polari says that,
Correct.
I will trust him.
And
Correct.
the other thing that I have noticed, because I live in the area and I go back and forth, sometimes it malfunctions and it's going off constantly, and there are no children or there isn't anybody crossing. Would that be a violation if someone goes through that?
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Sorry, could you repeat that, Michelle?
Sure. Sometimes when there's no one in the area and it's flashing, it malfunctions sometimes for whatever reason. I mean, it has over the years, and I don't know if the solar one will be any different. But if there's nobody in the vicinity and it's still flashing, can someone go through that without?
I think you're talking about the crossing where that's flashing. I think
Yeah.
when Jerry Tigg told us, I think it was at the last meeting, but he told us that was fixed now, that was a problem, but that was fixed.
Okay.
The flashing lights will just tell people that the speed limit and that they're.
Yeah, and I think the law is only when children are present during school hours.
Okay, no, and I would imagine
Yeah,
that.
because usually there's a sign that says.
They're two separate things.
Right.
Okay.
In the pavement, flashing lights are not mandated, or they're not legal, legal to be enforced.
Enforced.
Okay, they're just to draw the driver's attention. Whereas the signs they're putting next to them, the fluorescent signs with black symbols on them, those are the ones that are enforceable. So I don't know if that answers your question, but if the lights are going off and if there's nobody there, and somebody drives up there and sees on both sides to see there's nobody there and passes, I don't know if somebody can give a ticket for
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Piro's shaking his head no.
No?
He said no, he's saying you're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's good that the public knows that.
Yeah. Any other committees?
Yes,
Polari?
Madam President, board members, and the public, I have quite an extensive report to give, and I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible. I do understand the concern. I did raise the initial concern about saving some money on the budget, clearly without having any intention to identify specific line items. That we left it up to the able hands of our administration to do that. I would not categorize what we're doing as punitive under any circumstances. I think that's minimum that's required for us to ensure that we have a healthy situation next year and the years to come, given the situation we have with the referendum. With that said, on March 27th, I had the opportunity to have a quick conversation with Governor Murphy. I explained to him, and I brought up the situation with him giving some money to, I believe it's Lakewood.
Yes.
And he immediately moved on. On March 27th, the same day, I was at the State Assembly in Trenton. I gave a testimony to the Assembly Budget Committee. Most of the people who were there were talking about their schools, and it was very timely for me to give that testimony. I was given about 4 minutes or 3 minutes, something like that. In addition to that, I'm working with our board, with Mr. Grosky, to write letters to the governor, Senate President, Assembly Speaker, and others as well. The reason I'm mentioning this is that we are continuing to do the things we need to do to get additional funding in any shape or form to our district, and we will not rest until we get something back from the state. We'll continue to go at it. We also had meetings with our local legislators, including Mr. Dan Benson and Senator Greenstein, and Senator Greenstein agreed to draft a bill in June to support impact fees, which could be used for the school construction in the future. Maybe it's too little, too late, but at least it's on the radar screen, and she's working with it right now. And she also is trying to establish a special education commission, working with Senate President Steve Sweeney, looking at the state aid for special education. If we do that, I think that'll be helpful for our district also. Second item I want to talk about is there's a significant amount of interest that we see in the public about suing the state, and the board and the Education Advisory Committee would like to pursue that further. So the first step of that is we requested the board attorney to look into the history of what has taken place till today. Mary Smith is actually working on creating a letter and get us the information we need to get the background in terms of what has taken place. And one of the things that we're thinking about doing is, as a next step, is to request the board to allocate some resources so that we can have an independent attorney who is specialized in school funding to investigate our school situation and funding situation and come up with either we have a case to sue the state or we don't have a case to sue the state. The reason for doing that is that without having a clear idea on what exactly we're going to sue for, we'll be just throwing taxpayer money at the attorneys, and we don't want to do that. We want to put some seed money in to engage an experienced legal service organization to investigate our school district, specifically where the funding is coming from, and then give us a direction to say, yes, you have a case to sue, or you don't have a case to sue. And that's what we're heading towards. So with that said, I would like to make a motion to authorize the business administrator and the board secretary to prepare a request for proposal for legal services not to exceed in the amount of $8,000 for exploration of the feasibility of litigation in pursuit of increased state aid. The acting superintendent of schools and the business administrator / board secretary are hereby authorized and directed to take all necessary steps to implement this action by the Board of Education. And simply what we're saying here, in layman terms, is that we would like the board to allocate about $8,000 so that we can get an independent attorney to review this. And we want to keep this as transparent as possible. That way, none of us on the board, nor the administration, can pick a legal service firm to provide these services. We get the proposals from them, and we'll hire the best qualified firm to advise us moving forward. So that's the motion I'm trying to make.
Second.
No, he made the motion, so I need a second. Second by Mr. DeFano. Okay, any comments, questions for Mrs. Lang? Not from Mrs. Lang, but from Mrs. Lang.
Yeah,
Mr. Peluri, Mr. Peluri, when you're going to the lawyer, and so they're going to investigate what grounds we have as a school district to sue the state. One of the questions that I have is that from my research and from what I've been reading, that as a school district, it might not be in the best interest, but can they also look at how a possibility as a lawsuit on behalf of the taxpayers? If you go back and you look at the history of school funding, It was done by the Educational Law Center on behalf of 7 poor students that they selected through the state. It wasn't done to get that Abbott funding on the behalf of any particular school district. The people that are being impacted are our taxpayers, more so than our school district, because the school district, we provide a thorough and efficient education. We do all those things, but I think what we're missing, and I would just like it to be explored, is there the possibility of doing it as a class action lawsuit on behalf of all of the residents? If that would be a better way to do it. So I just want to put that out there with what you're investigating.
Ms. Lang, that's an excellent idea. I was thinking on the same lines as well. We'll make sure that when we request the request for intent to provide services, we'll include that as a part of it.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Mr. Tefano?
I was actually going to make a motion to do what you just said during other board business, so I'm glad you did it first. Saves me some breath. I think that we should definitely explore suing on the basis that all children are all of the same worth. There shouldn't be certain districts that their children are worth more money of our tax money than our children are worth. All children are of the same worth. Doesn't matter where you live. So I think the fair funding issue should be just looked at that way. You know, all students, no matter where they're from, are all worth the same money. That's the bottom line. I think that's the perfect basis for it. No child is worth more than the other as far as funding is concerned.
Unless you go to court and the court says certain districts are needed more money than others. So that's a court district, that's a
something
court
we have
issue.
to sue to change, because it's
Right,
definitely
because
affecting
we
us.
can't do that.
I think we should also sue the planning board as well as the mayor of this town, because their decisions have put us in this major crisis where we now have to cut, stuff that the taxpayers are used to. And we are asking them to pass these referendums because we are in crisis. And we have to stop what's causing our crisis. Otherwise, it's just going to continue, and there's going to be more cuts next year because there's more
Right.
students piling in.
Right. I'm sure that we're going to, before we even talk to somebody, we're going to have a lot of questions. And we'll ask for the input from all the board members as to what kind of questions they feel like we should ask and see where we go with
To
that.
respond to Mr. Tufano's question, one of the things we don't want to do is, since we're using taxpayers' money to be doing these investigations, anything in terms of historical data can be done by the in-house counsel. That's exactly what I'm working with Mary Smith, to see that if somebody in a similar situation like ours, or a similar thought process as you just stated, that every kid is created equally and they deserve the same amount of funding, if there is any kind of lawsuits that have already taken place, we would like to get a history of that so that we don't investigate the same thing all over again.
Right. Mr. Ryback?
I just want to say that, all the ideas we come up with here are ideas that, maybe we could use. We don't know. We're not attorneys. That's why we have to, get the right law firm. I know that the legislature is tasked with appropriations, and only the legislature can deal with appropriations, not the courts. So that's why we have to have the right angle. One of the things that bothers me is, I think, the Mount Laurel decision is the ratio of 4-1. I think that's something that was created. Nobody knows really how the thing was created, but it certainly benefits the developers. Doesn't benefit the taxpayers. That's something I think that maybe we could work with. We have to just find I guess what I'm saying is we have to find the right angles for a lawsuit, but we need the advice of
the
experienced
experts.
counsel.
Yeah, the Board of Education will not be able to challenge the Mount Laurel obligation, but I've been harping on that forever. And I believe that has traction from the Assembly Speaker's perspective. He said he'll look into that moving forward about the 4-to-1 ratio. I think it's just arbitrary number to say that for every affordable housing unit, they got to be 4
Nobody knows
market
how it
rates.
was derived at. Maybe
Somebody
the
just came up with
developers
it.
derived at it. I don't know.
So there's a motion on the floor.
I'm not done.
Ms. Arminio?
Okay, one of the things that I would be supportive of if we went forward with this, and at one of the meetings, it was a long night when we went to the committee meeting, so I'm not sure which meeting we discussed it in, but we were supposed to get an analysis between What if the state, a lot of people talked about, in the community, talked about, okay, well, their expectations are now the state may just come in and force us to build a school. And we talked about an analysis between that, if that happened, and what we were going to build ourselves by referendum. So have we gotten anywhere with that information? Because I think that should be included in the discussion if we brought in an expert attorney regarding suing the state. I thought we were going to get we were going to look at the application if the board, some people think that the board should apply to the state and have them build the school. Now, I don't have all the details of that, and we tasked somebody at the committee meetings to get that. So I don't know if that's gone anywhere, but I think that would be very essential in something like this. I think Mr. Tague talked about approaching it.
I vaguely recall
That's
something
right.
like that.
But I think it's important, we talked about that was one of the things that the stakeholders talked about, the state coming in, they just thought that that would be maybe an easy solution. So I think we have to be presented with the details of what that would entail in Monroe, if it was.
If I may, and I don't want me to
Mr.
interrupt, but I
Chiarella?
recall that conversation. So what Mr. Tague said that he would do was get us a rough overview of
Right.
what it would mean, for instance, to have a school built by the state and what their definition would be, what the cost would be, and those kind of things.
Right.
I
So,
think
I
we
mean,
discussed
And
that
we
a little
haven't
bit.
had another meeting since
No,
that
no,
time,
I
so,
think it was
right.
really
But-
just, it was just in,
But we're
in
talking
passing.
about, you're talking about a resolution here, and I think that's ancillary to what this resolution is supposed to be. If we're going to hire somebody to give us counsel on this sort of thing, I think it should include what would the analysis be between the state coming in and
And I
putting-
understand, but
Okay.
at this point, that's not our job to do that. We just want to hire a firm. And as we go forward, there are going to be a lot of issues that we're not giving to Mr. Pelori right now
No.
as to what we need to look
Okay, well,
at.
what will happen, like what just happened over the committee meetings, that everybody forgot that discussion. So what I'm afraid of, that this discussion will be dismissed, and it was clearly something that the public was interested in. And I think we agreed at one of the committee meetings that it would behoove us to get the details, to expose those details to the public, and I think that would be a consideration in this regard. My second information that I think should be part and parcel in this type of resolution, and I've talked about it. Mr. Rybeck sort of said something about what what happens in legislation. But we need to approach, and since you have such warm relationships, I guess, with the legislature, we need to change that formula. The formula is false. That needs to be absolutely in anything that we go forward with.
School aid for.
The formula, no, not the school aid formula, that we already know about. The formula for building, the Rutgers formula that has been debunked.
Yes.
And the legislature has to come in and change that approval, that they represent, that's how to determine construction and density and availability for, the big thing is, we said 500 and some odd units on Mounts Mills Road are only going to produce 93 kids. It's a joke. So that formula has to be absolutely thrown out, and we have to get a realistic and honest view of the population that's going to come through the development and the high density
And I think that's a
development.
different subject than the suing the state.
It is
So-
not, madam. It is, in my opinion, it is
okay.
not.
Okay.
Because it
So-
is, if we we're suing the state because we want impact fees, that goes along with impact fees. We're talking about, I think all those things go together. If we hire an attorney that has knowledge and experience based on dealing with the state and suing them for our funds, that should be all part of it, because that is all part of what our enrollment crisis is all about. It's not just one thing, it's not just the funding that we're not getting, it's the impact, not having impact fees. It's having builders come in and say the absolute minimum, if the absolute falsehood of what that impact is going to be on our schools. That all goes together. We can't make decisions without proper data.
Madam?
Mr. Gorski.
Thank you. I recall the committee meeting quite vividly, and I'll help color in this picture that's being presented. Mr. Tague had presented the fact that after 2 referendum defeats, where a district has no unapproved costs, meaning that all of your project costs are approved by the state, you can engage in a legal appeal to the state to have the voters' will overturned and have the project approved. All of the referenda projects that we presented have some degree of ineligible costs. We talked about it extensively. What is ineligible costs? It's beyond the state hypothetical model as a square footage cost, and it includes things like AP classrooms, parking lots, performing arts centers, and the like. All of those contribute to unqualified, unapproved costs. So what we had discussed at the committee level was a recommendation to try to sketch out what a approved only cost school would look like and compare it to our project. We are working on that, and we will present that at a future committee meeting so that you could see what a approved only cost school looks like. And as we presented to the committee, I assure you it will resemble nothing like any of our other schools, and it will be inadequate.
Mr. Gorski, I am not making a judgment. All I'm saying, and I agree with you, but what we agreed to was that it would be in the best interest of informing the public about that instead of just listening to us make these statements. The actual comparison and analysis, and I think we all agreed that we would like to see that in writing and on paper.
I didn't make any reference about your judgment on the matter or not, but what I was saying was this legal appeal to the state is very specific if you have no unapproved costs. What Mr. Pelori is moved tonight has to do with the state funding formula and state aid. I believe they are 2 separate issues, and my opinion, to combine them in this reso would make this very challenging to effectuate.
So would you recommend a
It's
separate
too broad.
resolution for those other things?
Perhaps.
Okay, perhaps, or yes? I think it
I
would.
think we need to explore it at the committee level first, because we don't know what we're visualizing with the school with no unapproved costs. Let's let the committee do their job and sketch up what a approved only cost school would look like, so that we can see.
Madam President, if I may, the warm and fuzzy relationship with elected officials, it's part of doing my job is to advocate.
It wasn't a derogatory statement.
Well, you know,
Sorry.
when we're in a public setting, when the TVs are running and the speakers are on, we got to be careful in the words we say in a public setting, please. The second thing, as I understood, Michelle, is you brought 3 separate items we're discussing here. Number 1 is the motion I made about suing the state. You talked about the state taking over building the school as a second item. Third item is the formula that's used for generating the school-going kids using the Rutgers formula, 3 separate things, right? Specifically, the expertise that we're seeking is from an attorney who has done school funding specifically. The first thing is they will not have any idea in terms of the formula of school-going kids. I can tell you that right now. That's completely different. So what I intend to do, and maybe somebody on the board would join me to do this, is there are statistics that can be extrapolated within our own district. In other words, we have done the 2-bedroom units for apartments in the community, and we can always get how many kids are coming from those and make a correlation. That's when we go to the legislation to ask that question. So I think I would like to do that.
And I'd be happy to join you in that.
Yeah, I would like to do that. In terms of state school coming over and taking over building a school is concerned, it's my understanding, I don't know, Rupa, help me out on this. If we heard this in one of the state school board training or something, they said that we, as the Board of Ed, have to go and seek the state.
Exactly.
come
We
and
have to
take over.
appeal to the state to come
Correct.
in.
They don't come in automatically.
No.
Correct.
And what I was trying to say is, this was something that the public would be interested in, that information. That's all I'm trying to say.
And I think the
we should
Buildings and
provide it.
Grounds team is working
Yeah,
on
we'll
getting
do
that
Okay,
information.
that's all I'm
Fair
asking.
enough?
So right now, we
Fair
have a
enough.
motion and a second on the floor to just engage, and at this time, it's just to go for an RFP for a certain amount of, for not exceeding a certain amount of money, which is $8,000.
Correct.
So, any other questions? Because if not, we're going to have a roll call. Okay, we'll have a roll call.
Mrs. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo,
Yes.
Mrs. Arminio,
Yes.
Mrs. Siegel,
Yes.
Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky,
Yes.
Mr. Pelori.
Happily, yes.
So noted. Mr. Tefano.
Yes.
And Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Yes.
Madam Board President, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Great, so I have a request before we go to the next part of the agenda, if somebody could make a motion for a 5-minute recess.
Yes, please. I have no
Second.
my list.
Who made that motion? Me, Mrs.
Oh.
Lang, and second by Mr. Ryback. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have a 5-minute motion, 5-minute recess.
So moved.
I changed my
It's okay. At this time, the board will go back into public session, and we will go to the public forum for agenda items only. If anybody has a wish to speak to the agenda, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, 4-minute time limit.
Good evening, Chrissy Skirby, 21 Preakness Drive. Going back to the budget, it was mentioned that previous, I guess, clubs are being cut at the high school level. Just wondering if the previously approved swimming team for next year is still going to remain, or if that was something that's being cut.
The swimming team has not been previously done. It was new in the budget this year. Any new clubs in the budget this year have been eliminated.
So that includes swimming?
The swimming club
Yes.
has been eliminated.
Okay. Mr. Chiarella, I want to thank you for your comments regarding the cuts. I just want to ask the Finance Committee, in the future, or even possibly now, before you start making cuts that do affect kids and our students, are we looking at other ways to raise revenue? Because I know the surrounding towns around us, Millstone, East Brunswick, they rent out their facilities on the weekends. My daughter dances at a dance studio that attends competitions at Millstone Middle School several weekends out of the year. They are making a fortune, Millstone Board of Education, on renting out their facilities that are much smaller than our PACs. I know that we don't rent facilities out to profitable businesses, that it's only meant for nonprofits, but maybe this board needs to start looking at that, renting out our facilities where we could bring in revenue, because East Brunswick is doing it, Millstone is doing it, why aren't we? Before we start making cuts, let's look at raising revenue in other areas. For instance, my son's on the baseball team, we travel out to other townships for their baseball. We see sponsorships around the field. There's signs on, around the baseball field. There's all different local businesses that have sponsorships. Why aren't we looking at doing that on our field, our football fields, our baseball fields, our lacrosse fields, getting sponsorship signs? There's ways that we can create revenue here in Monroe that we're not doing. The first thing we do is we start cutting stuff that, while I'm a stay-at-home mom and I could pick up my kids from clubs, there are a lot of students there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of students affected at the middle school next year who may not be able to make a sports team because they're so overcrowded they don't have the opportunity to make that sports team, and the only thing that they have available to them is a club that now they're not even going to have transportation home from where they previously did. It's sad because we are affecting children and the education that they receive. We saw all these kids tonight standing here getting accolades for all their achievements, the buses for those clubs are being cut. They might not have the opportunity next year to continue with that and to strive to achieve the achievements that they made here. It's not right. I think that this board should be looking at something other than just making cuts quickly like that. There's other ways to raise revenue for what we needed. And I wanted to be clear. Was it said that in the Finance Committee meeting that Ms. Kalpanowicz asked for the reduction down to 2 cents? Was that the recommendation?
It was before the Finance Committee. I had asked Mr. Gorski if it was possible to make cuts to come under the 2 cent mark, because I think our public has been asking for us to look at the taxes. Are there things that we could cut to come down to 2 cents? He gave us a list of things that could be done, and the Finance Committee spent a good hour and a half going over every single line item in that list, the pros and cons of each. We got all the information that everybody in that committee requested, and we made our decision based on that meeting.
And there was no recommendations for ways to increase our revenue?
I'm sorry. The building use increase, which was a conservative number, I think it was $75,000, is something that we're looking at and exploring through policy to open up potential revenue. But that was a conservative number. The idea of using our facilities more as a moneymaker and to generate revenue, that's what that line was for.
Okay.
There was also a number of things that we were discussing in the Educational Advocacy Committee on ways to increase our revenue, because we'd like to do that. We talked about a lot of different opportunities. We talked about advertising on our fields, but there's a lot of policy issues that we would have to do first before we can enact something.
Well, maybe you do that before you change the lives of a student by making cuts that drastically affect
Well,
them.
the budget is due today. We would have to spend quite a few months looking at policy before we can change policy.
Well, this is the first any parent heard that you were making these cuts. We didn't hear
Exactly. Because from the first preliminary budget till now is the opportunity to make decisions and increases, decreases, cuts, add to the budget. That's why we have a preliminary budget and a final budget adoption. So is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
It's very sad.
Good evening, Betty Sabarito, 2 Barrymore Drive. I wanted to speak a little bit about, you guys did a presentation with the Unified Sports, and I wanted to say how amazing that program is, and it's really doing wonders for our children. And I wanted to take a minute to thank Mr. Goodall for his work with special needs, because I've been in this district 6 years now. I have twins, one of which has autism. And so I've been here 6 years since he started preschool, only 10 more for you guys to have me here. There has been nobody in administration or on this board in the 6 years that I've been here that has done more for special needs than Mr. Goodall. He has put us on the map. I don't expect my son and children like him to be more important than other students, but I expect them to be equally as important. It is thanks to him that we have a functioning, active, well-working CPAG, which is a state-mandated parent advisory group. There was a big disconnect in ELA with the reading program, where we have a lot of children at the high school and middle school level that don't have reading comprehension skills. It's thanks to him that now ELA and special education are kind of communicating, and we're trying to fix this. There's a lot of other things he's done, but I just wanted to say thank you, Mr. Goodall, because for parents like myself, it has reduced our frustration. I think if we start to address some of these systemic issues, you're going to reduce lawsuits, you're going to reduce a lot of headaches, and so thank you for putting my son Lucas and children like him on the map. I appreciate that more than anything. I've said it always. You know, we gave these kids life. This district has to help to give them their best life, and they are just as important to educate as our gifted and talented students, as our mid-of-the-way students. Just, they have to be on equal level playing field. So thank you again for making them just as much of a priority as every other student.
Mrs. Sabarito, thank you very much. I do have to say it's been a great team effort. Dr. Alvick, Mr. Gorski, the supervisors, the Pupil Personnel Services, and you know the teachers that you love so dearly. It's a complete team effort. Thank you for the compliment.
It is
But
a team effort, but you've led that team, and I've been
Thank you.
trying, myself and other parents have been trying to get this team led for years, and we just weren't able to. So whatever you're doing, thank you, because it's made a big difference.
Thank you from all of us.
And from the
Thank you.
parents that are active, we're all seeing a big difference, so thank you so very much.
Thank
That was
you.
it. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing no one, we will close the public forum and go to the superintendent's report. Mr. Goodall.
Thank you very much. And following up on that, just really encouraging the whole community to come to our next CPAG meeting. That's on May 23rd. Tentatively, we'll get some more information out as we approach the date. Typically, it's at 6:30 here in the Media Center. And it's been a great dialogue between the parents and the teachers, the administrators, and we have had a lot of special guests, members of the Board of Education, community members, teachers who don't work with special education students have all come to this meeting. It's getting larger and larger and more popular. We've had some great presenters on some of the issues and challenges that parents have of special needs children, so I really encourage everyone to attend our CPAG meetings. I also wanted to congratulate and welcome back our unified soccer team representing New Jersey, our district, and the Red Bulls out in Kansas City. I understand it was a great trip, and their work is not done yet. They were out working at Red Bull Arena today in preparation for their game on Saturday, May 4th, and that's following the professional game at 2 p.m. So they'll be playing against the unified team representing Los Angeles, California, and the LA Galaxy. So I wanted to wish the players good luck, as well as Coach Dillon and Coach Muscali, who do an incredible job with those students. We did a lot of student presentations and recognition tonight. We had some great news, breaking news on the success of our youth and government delegation recently. We couldn't organize them to get here tonight. The purpose of youth and government is to discuss and debate issues that affect citizens in their state and to propose legislation. The program culminates with teens serving as delegates at their state conference, debating bills on the floor of the legislature. I just want to congratulate the advisor, Ms. Laura Granite, and members of the Youth and Government Delegation this year. They received the Outstanding Delegation Award for 2019. And we will have the individual winners and the group back at a future board meeting to recognize them. At this time of year, it's sometimes we have to say goodbye to staff members who to decide that their service is done to our school district. And I just wanted to offer congratulations on behalf of the district to Mr. Kirk Rothfuss of the high school, Ms. Christine Duane of Oak Tree Elementary School, Mr. Eugenius Fikowski, a district custodian, and finally Ms. Connie Shar, the head custodian at Monroe Township Middle School. And I just wanted to thank you on behalf of the district to their service, to the students and the district, and we want to wish them an enjoyable next journey in their life in the future. So thank you for their service to the district. Some great people will be leaving us, and we wish them well in their next journey. Also, a little off topic, Mike, I didn't have a chance. Mr. Gorski, I wanted to thank you and Laura Allen and the business office for all of the efforts you made over the spring break vacation to get this budget adjustment in with the county. I know many of the people you had to work with were unavailable, and you were up late, and throughout your whole vacation, spending the time to do this. So on behalf of everyone, thank you for doing that for the district.
Thank you, Mr. Goodall. As you very eloquently said, it's a team effort, and Dr. Alvick and Lori Allen and Nancy Tagliaferro were integral parts of getting this budget where it is tonight, and I share that with the team.
Okay. So we do have some personnel action items. Madam Board President and members of the Board of Education, it is recommended that personnel action items A through AP under the superintendent report be approved by consent roll call.
Mr. Ryback? Second by Mrs. Lang. Any comments or questions for Mr. Goodall? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call.
Mr. Rutsky?
Yes.
Mr. Tefano?
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lang?
Yes.
Mr. Pelori?
Yes.
Mr. Ryback?
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella?
Yes.
Mrs. Siegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Arminio?
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz?
Yes.
Madam Board President, personnel items A through AP has passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Madam Board President and members of the Board of Education, it is recommended that board action items A through O be approved by consent roll call.
Mr. Ryback? Mrs. Lang? Any, again, comments or questions for Mr. Goodall? Ms. Arminio?
Actually, I might have asked this at the policy committee meeting, but if Mr. Goodall wants to discuss this, on the policy 150, it's actually a bylaw 0152, I had asked that the a language be removed that says any member may place a member's name in nomination. That was original. I'd like that. The language that I thought should be removed was, though not required, a second is encouraged and permissible. I'd just like to know how that's going to work out and what does that mean exactly. If a member at the organization meeting nominates someone, it's for the, 0152 is for board officers. If someone, any member of the board may nominate any other member of the board for a officer's position, and so they can, right? And then it says, though not required, a second is encouraged and permissible. How is that going to work out?
Madam?
Mr. Gorski?
As that falls under my responsibilities with the board organization meeting, I can elaborate on that. I've
Okay.
known for many years now that the law only requires one nomination for officer position. You could even nominate oneself.
Right.
Okay, and then you don't need a second. It's encouraged because of past history with the policy, but it is not required, and I've never required it. If there ever was a circumstance where we only had a first motion and not a second for officer, it would count and it would have been moved. It has never happened. We've always had seconds.
Okay, but it's not required, so I'm not sure why it's necessary.
I can't answer that. Probably it's best to take it back to policy and then have the
Well,
policy committee recommend a change.
There wasn't a willingness to change the language at the policy meeting or discuss it.
Well, that's clear, that no one was willing to do that. I just think that, when somebody is nominating a board officer, if someone nominates that person, they're going to be voted on regardless of whether there's a second. And then if another person is nominated and there's a second, they'll still be voted on. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I just think I think I'm going to
This
really
was
be
brought
careful
to
about
the-
my language, Mr. Polari, because I don't want to insult anybody.
This was brought to the board attorney for specific language on that policy.
I understand. It's
Right.
not necessary. It's really that though not required, a second is encouraged and permissible. I just think it's not necessary, and it shows again, and I think I mentioned it in the past, it shows a willingness of the minority to perhaps discourage a minority nomination. So that's all I needed to say. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chiarella?
Yeah, I just have a question on D on the calendar.
D on the calendar.
I'm on the right spot, right?
Yes.
So on D, just the revised calendar, school calendar. How was that date, I don't know how that works, but how was that date chosen for the snow day, 24th? I was just wondering, that's just for my own
Just to make it a 4-day weekend, right?
Yeah, in the past, what we've always done when we have an unused snow day, we add it into the Memorial Day weekend so that it doesn't affect graduation at the end of the year. When I looked to see whether Friday or Tuesday would be the better day to add back, to give back to the community, I look very carefully at our field trip calendar, our professional development calendar, to see what it affects. So Friday, it didn't affect any field trips.
Oh, okay, thank you. No, I was just wondering.
We talked with the Teachers Association and get a consensus on the day.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Polari?
Just following up on Michelle Arminio's comment, I do agree with her that, having what is required and what is not required in the same sentence may not make sense. I request the policy committee to look into that and say, simplify the language, take out the unnecessary language out of it. That's my
We,
request.
we did look at that. We looked at that twice, and we brought it to the attorney. This is the
That was
attorney's
Mary's, Mrs. Smith's
recommendation
recommendation.
of language, yes. Because for all the years that I have been on the board, I cannot remember never having a second in you have a motion and a second.
Right.
I never remembered not having a second when it came to an officer position. So while you don't need it, what she's saying is that it's permissible to have it. So, okay, no one else? Then we'll have a roll call.
Mrs. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mrs. Lang.
Yes.
Mrs. Arminio.
Yes, but no on bylaw 0152 on N.
Thank you. Mrs. Siegel.
Yes.
Mr. Tefano.
Yes.
Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Mr. Pelori.
Yes.
Mrs. Copano.
Bless you.
No, yes.
Madam Board President, Board action items A through O under Superintendent's report has passed.
Thank you. And I believe that concludes your report, Mr. Goodall.
That concludes the superintendent's report.
And we will go to Mr. Gorski.
Thank you. Very briefly, I want to point out that we had executed all of the property and casualty policies for the forthcoming school year with the property and casualty broker. And I want to point out that because of our proactiveness in addressing school facilities, specifically roofs and things that cause inhalation irritants in the classrooms and school buildings, and other factors including very good lighting and safety grant lighting that we received, and pavement repair, and all of the things that make our schools as safe and beautiful as they are. Monroe's workers' comp experience is, as I wrote about in the board notification, 0.55, and the range for this, according to all school districts in this school board insurance group, is from 0.43 to 1.34. There are only 4 schools in the state of 100 districts that have a lower modification number than Monroe. So our workers' comp numbers are extremely low, and because of that, according to the broker, we saved $400,000 annually in workers' comp premiums, which are reflected in this budget. So I want to give kudos to the board for addressing these with their appropriations over time, and Mr. Tague for his careful eye in making sure that our schools are safe and invigorating for students and staff. Also in here is a lease agreement that was negotiated by the board attorney and I with the board attorney and the landlord. And we were successful in negotiating the request down from 3% to, I believe, 2% increases per year for a 3-year term with options for 2 more to take it to 5. I think most likely it will probably be extended to 5 based upon our projected timeline and referendum.
And that's for
schedule.
pupil personnel services where they're at Monroe Commons right now.
Yes, ma'am, and
Okay.
central student registration where all the new students are registered. Both of those are housed in the Monroe Commons, which is this lease that's in the BA report. So, Madam Board President and members of the Monroe Township Board of Education, it is recommended that board action items A through L be approved by consent roll call.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Chiarella, Mr. Ryback, any comments or questions for Mr. Gorski? Mr. Pelori?
I'll make it really quick. I want to congratulate and thank Mike for all the hard work he does. And, you know, when I sent the email requesting for budget reductions and what he went through, I really appreciate it. I echo the same sentiment Rob Goodall has said. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Just very briefly, these aren't my cuts. This isn't the Gorski list of cuts. These came from all the stakeholders, including principals, vice principals, supervisors, directors, everybody with knowledge to these budget appropriations in the 1920 budget. And these were, by consensus, recommended to the committee as the least impactful cuts. And certainly the transportation cuts, we have a very careful eye on. Mr. Goodall, Dr. Alvick, and I, along with Kathy McDonald, and we believe that these do not impact or impair safety whatsoever. So thank you, Mr. Pelori.
Thank you.
Mrs. Lang?
I did have one question about the transportation agreement with the Educational Services Commission. Is there, I know it lists the 6 things that they're supposed to provide. but in the past, I know that we've had issues with drivers who do not speak the same language, supports that aren't being provided, and there's been not really any way to go back to the Ed Services Commission and get satisfaction. So where does that come up in this in the agreement? I know, I see that we're also gonna do with the Monmouth Educational Services, but I have long held some serious concerns about the transportation situation with the Ed Services Commission, the quality of the companies that we are forced to accept, the routes that they put our kids on. I just wanted to know if there was a bit more protection for us and our students, because we're putting our most needy students on these buses with some situations that are, you know,
Yes.
of a
Madam?
big concern.
Sure.
Mrs. Lang, I appreciate the question. Very well put. And yes, we do put in language in the contracts and the bid specifications in particular to items requiring cameras on buses, for example, language requirements to the extent allowed by law, and things like that. The attorney is certainly involved in all of the bid specifications and the contracts, as well as Mrs. McDonald. Any special education vans that require lifts, we're very detailed in what we require. Unfortunately, we are at the, there's an extreme driver shortage across the state. Bus companies are using these drivers for their most profitable routes. Inherently, these are not schools. And we are, in many instances, lucky to even have the contracted routes that we have, understanding that the quality is not on par with ours, which I wholeheartedly agree. And that's why in this budget, even with these cuts, it was important enough to maintain one route coming back from the Ed Services Commission with an in-house bus and an in-house driver.
Oh, thank you. So I appreciate that clarification. I just, you know, I wasn't sure if it shows up in the contract or where that was, but I just want to make sure that we're doing what we can in terms of that one piece. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one, we will have a roll call, Mr. Gorski.
Mr. Pelori?
Yes.
Mrs. Siegel?
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lang?
Yes.
Mrs. Arminio?
Yes.
Mr. Ryback?
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky?
Yes.
Mr. Chiarello?
Yes.
Mr. Tefano?
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz?
Yes.
Madam Board President, Board action items A through L under the BA report is passed. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll go to the Board President's report, and I have two items. The first is the ad hoc committee that we've been talking about, the one that's going to be looking at the all the call for papers, which we will get into at a different time. We received quite a few responses to the requests for letters of interest. The selection for the committee will be made this week, and those selected will be notified along with a date for a first meeting where we get to let everybody know what the goal of the committee will be, and to meet all the people that will be on that committee. So we look forward to that committee working together well. The second thing is it's that time of year where we have to do a superintendent evaluation. So I know we had a board training on that at the beginning of the year. At this time, it is Mr. Goodall's responsibility to go on to the NJSBA website. There is a form that he has to fill out in regard to the superintendent's evaluation. He has to fill out his part. When he has completed his part, New Jersey school boards will be sending all the board members an email letting us know that it is time for us to do our part. Should not take very long to do. We're hoping to have a meeting at the end of May, which is not scheduled. We don't have a scheduled meeting, but we're going to need one in order for us to discuss the evaluation. The evaluation is all tallied by New Jersey school boards. There is no, all the responses that you put down are anonymous It's all compiled and sent to the board president, and then we all get a copy of that and we discuss it. So nobody will know who said what, or who voted for what, or where you put your little check marks or anything like that. So, you know, I think we can get this done by the end of May, and it's up now to Mr. Goodall to do his piece, which I don't think is an issue. And then we look forward to having that discussion. I think at the next meeting on the 10th, we can set up a date, or we could set up a date and let everybody know if the, that date is good, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay, so that is my board president's report. So now, other board business. Does anybody have any other board business?
Madam President.
Mrs. Siegel.
Okay. Couple things. First of all, I want to congratulate all the students recognized tonight on all their achievements. It's quite an accomplishment to be a student and successfully participate in these activities. A couple other things I wanted to highlight. I'd like to congratulate the Monroe Township Percussion Symphony. They, under the direction of Mr. Yale Snyder, they were recently selected to perform at the NAFME All-Eastern Conference in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The prestigious event took place on April 6th. Out of the 10 participating East Coast states, only 3 school percussion groups were selected and invited to perform. I had an opportunity to be out there, and they were phenomenal. They had ovations upon ovations and rounds of applause. So it was really wonderful to see. At that same conference, our very own Mr. Yale Snyder represented our school district and municipality when he presented a workshop on successful percussion pedagogy. This presentation was attended by more than 75 teachers, school administrators, and industry professionals. And I'd like to say a special thank you to Mr. Moralda and Ms. Palmer for being out there and cheering the kids on. It was really nice of them to be out there to support them. We also just recently had learned last Sunday that 10 students from the Monroe Township High School choral program were selected to the NJMEA All-State Chorus. So this is the second straight year that Miss Ariel Klein has had double-digit acceptances. We'll be receiving more information about this incredible honor later this month. And I also want to just piggyback on what Mr. Pepe had talked about during his goals earlier. I've had the opportunity to be a parent at Brookside School and participate in the Empty Bowl project. And each year, Miss Anthony adds a different level to the event. And this year, I had an opportunity to pick up my own ceramic and decorate my own ceramic. She added a parent night. So I'd really like to thank Miss Anthony. She has been leading the 5th graders at Brookside School for about 6 years with her grassroots initiative around hunger. The 5th graders and school administrators, if you don't know, craft ceramic bowls with the help of their art teachers, research key facts about hunger in New Jersey, communicate that information to their schoolmates, and then host an event where their guests share a modest meal of soup and other refreshments for a small donation and offering of non-perishable goods. The proceeds from this actually benefit a lot of the local food pantries. So Brookside School is hosting this event again this year on Friday, May 31st at 6:30. And another element that was added, I think it was last year, the Senior Center will be hosting an event and auctioning any leftover bowls that the seniors and the Empty Bowl students actually glazed together. So the event is going to be at the Senior Center on Wednesday, June 5th at 6 p.m. The middle school chorus will be performing there, and the Brookside Empty Bowl ambassadors will be attending and mingling with the seniors. And they're going to be sharing some information around what they've learned about hunger with all those that are attending. But this event is only for the seniors that are senior members at the Senior Center. So if there are any seniors that are interested, please reach out to Karen Kier, who's the director of the Senior Center. And it is pretty amazing. The kids have raised over $21,000 in the past 6 years and have donated 100% of the food to 5 local pantries. So they've done a great job. So I applaud Miss Anthony and the Brookside teachers and all the other teachers around the school district that helped them make it so successful.
Thank you, Mrs. Siegel. Ms. DeMayo?
I noticed on our agenda tonight that we had a $1,000 donation from BCB Bank to support the Empty Bowl project at Brookside. So I want to just thank the BCB Bank for their support of this initiative.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Pelori?
Madam President, I just want to recognize, obviously, the winners today and the teachers who led those winners to the sports and whatever areas they really like to excel. One of the presentation about the civic education, I just want to touch upon the fact that on the Earth Day, one of the local Indian USF former Monroe Township conducted beach cleaning, and 60 students from Monroe Township School has participated in cleaning the beach at Asbury Park for about 5 hours.
Wow, I did
Although
not
it
know
was a
that.
damp day with rain, I tell you, the kids were excellent, and we really enjoyed having them there. Thank you.
We have to find another day to honor our students because they get involved in so many things that they're not able to come here for us to just acknowledge them. So we have to do it maybe later in the year before graduation and when there's no activities. No. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we will go to the public forum. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. And seeing no one, we will close the public forum and go to closed session resolution.
Madam, before closed session.
You want me to read this first?
Yes, please.
Okay. It is recommended that the Board of Education appoint Steve Ryback as temporary board secretary for a closed session meeting in accordance with NJSA 18A:16-1.1.
I will second that if he is up to it. You're up to it.
Are you up to that, Mr. Ryback? Oh, I need a first.
Oh,
Oh, you would like to first?
I'll second.
You'll second Mrs. Lang. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then, Mr. Ryback, you have the honor of being our secretary again. So, let's see. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Township of Monroe hereby moves to go into closed session in accordance with the Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, NJSA 10:4-6 through 10:4-21, to discuss the following subjects: harassment, intimidation, and bullying, position of superintendent of schools deliberation process. Following closed session, action may be taken. The discussion conducted in closed session can be discussed to the public at such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Mr. Mayo and Mr. Tefano. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, at this, opposed? So at this time, we will move into closed session. We will probably be there a while. When we come out, there will be no action taken. No, we have to come back into.
Session again?
Ready? So we move back into public session. And seeing no one for the closed public forum, our next scheduled Board of Education meeting is next Wednesday. May 8th, 2019, 7 o'clock p.m. at the Monroe Township High School. Motion to adjourn.
I second that.
Mrs. Lang?
Motion.
And Pete.
Second.
And Peter. All in favor?
Cheers.
Opposed? And then the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you to our audio.